welcome to Oak Road Hatter. It's been a while since we last recorded, but we're coming to you from a Luton win. I'm joined by Jamie Castle. How are you doing, Jamie?
Yeah, not too bad. Home for Christmas. It was a manic week last week. Silly season, Christmas parties, and all various social stuff. But no, I think I'm not the only one that needed a week off recording podcasts because it was getting a bit of a down and depressing series of pods. So yeah, it was nice to have that little week off, but good to be back after a win.
And we're also joined by Adam Driscoll. How are you doing, Adam?
Yeah, all good, mate. All good. Was slightly under the weather this week and recovering at the moment. So didn't make the game in person on Friday night, but yeah, watched from home and pleased to see us somehow get a win. So we'll dissect that and work out how the hell that happened.
Yeah, as Adam mentioned there, we will be talking about a win from Friday night. But before that, don't forget to check out our Oak Road Hatter merch, whether that's for some very, very last minute Christmas presents, which, let's face it, they will arrive late at this point, but they'll be completely worth it. Or if you're looking to get some more gifts in for the new year looking forward. So if you check out our website, oakroadhatter.com, and our merch store is on there, and there's plenty of options on there. But we'll get straight into things. And Jamie, I'm going to come to you first because we're going to have to talk about it. The performance against Derby County at home, it wasn't exactly, I don't know what word to go for here. It wasn't exactly outstanding. We'll be generous.
No, it was terrible, to be honest. I think I made my feelings known after the game. I think in terms of performances, it was right up there in terms of worst performances. Certainly at home, I think obviously let's take the home form for what it is. I think the home form was pretty good. I think I was saying off air that I think we're sixth in the table for home games, which I think shows from a results perspective that we're actually doing pretty well, and it's propelled us to the lofty heights of 15th in a minute. So obviously home form is decent. I think performance wise, it was it was a very nondescript first half. I think it's probably putting it in a nice way. Not really a lot to talk about, so I think we'll probably just gloss over the first half. To be honest, it was almost as if the players hadn't come out from both teams. I think obviously we were bad, but so were they. Second half, yeah, I think if I'm a Derby fan, I'm probably feeling a bit sorry for myself to have not come away with at least a point. I think did they deserve to win it? I think probably not, because they themselves weren't anything special, and they managed to take advantage from a sort of a decent cross. Obviously, Chong, as I was also saying off air, has just done his best Issa Kabore impression at the back post, losing his man. Again, I mean, at the same time, right? He's not a defender. He's not a wing back. So if you put him at right wing back, then you've got to expect those things to come, right? So, I think was it Jackson that scored in the end? I think he obviously beat Chong at the far post as he should, leaps it over and scores to make it 1-0. And I mean, for large parts after that, I mean, bar probably that 4-minute stint where we scored 2 in 4 minutes, we didn't really create an awful lot. I think we probably had a couple of chances from set pieces, but in terms of like open play chances, it was next to nothing. So I think after the game I was pretty down. I think I mentioned on Twitter that actually I was pretty flat and barely even celebrated both goals, just based on the fact that it was such a poor game, and I think I was probably a bit more focusing on performance. But clearly getting the win's important. As much as we all expect or did expect more this season in terms of sort of potentially top 6 or higher, I think we all know now that that's just not going to be the case, and priority number one is just to stay in this league. Whether that's the right or wrong expectation is a different debate entirely, but ultimately we need to get the wins to make sure that we stay well away from that bottom 3. So in the end, it was a really important win, and who knows, I think we said it before, obviously getting a late win against Stoke, hopefully it sort of turns it a little bit, and then I doubt this win is gonna turn fortunes again. Clearly we've got two back-to-back away games coming up from Boxing Day and the 29th, but just hopefully it injects a bit of life into the players to go to Bristol and go to Swansea and try and get something from those 2 games, because our away form, as I said before, is pretty damn shit, to be honest. So hopefully we can turn that around and get something on Boxing Day.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly a great performance from either side, but it was a game that we looked at ahead of it, and I'm sure most Luton fans thought we need to be getting something from this, and we should be getting something from this, because Derby's away record was pretty poor anyway. So going behind just sucked the life out of Kenilworth Road on a Friday night under the lights when you expect it to be a pretty good atmosphere, Adam.
Yeah, and watching it on telly, I think I can't say that I sensed much of an atmosphere before that anyway. But I think, given the fact that we are where we are, the season's gone how it has, it was just one of those where it was just let's just try and win by any means, and there wasn't that atmosphere to speak of. But certainly when Derby scored, all you could hear was their fans, and rightly so. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just on that goal itself, Jamie's touched on it already a little bit, but it's just, again, you just look at the kind of build up to the goal and the complete basics of doing things right. And there's quite a few players that you can point a finger at across that goal. I mean, the first one probably is Kraus in terms of giving the ball away, but I'm not going to start jumping on him, because the nature of him and how he plays, he will give the ball away. Like, if you think that a pressing, aggressive centre midfielder like that is not going to give the ball away, then you're watching the wrong sport, in my opinion. So yeah, disappointing, but understandable. I think the ease of which they got the ball in, the cross in from that right hand side, was far too easy, and you could probably look at someone like Adebayo on that scenario. And then after that, I mean, Chong. I know Chong's not a defender, but do something to try and put the guy off. Like, we all defend corners as well between us as a team. So you've got to have that mindset of, I'm going to do something to try and put the guy off, even if I'm not going to, win the actual header itself. And he didn't really do that. I mean, he sort of just, I don't think he did anything. Just sort of seemed to stand there and get pushed off and lose it really, really easily. So that's majorly disappointing and something to look at. And then you can also look at a couple of the centre halves and ask why they are being statue-like with that ball coming over with no real reaction as well. So they'll look at it rightly, and Edwards has a right to be frustrated again with the manner, at which we've conceded that goal. And I think after that, I don't really think there was a reaction. If I'm honest, I think I guess what concerns me in some of these games is that we seem to get progressively worse and lacking ideas, and that's where I want to see us really bolster in January in terms of ideas and personnel, and just freshen things up, because we do need to, and because we aren't going to get out of jail on all of these home games. So we do need to be very careful in terms of how lucky we are getting at times as well.
And Jamie, you mentioned Chong was doing his best Issa Kabore impression at the back post. It's an area we've spoken about previously. It's Chong playing in that wing back position, and it's certainly not helping Rob Edwards' case.
No, not at all. And I know, Adam, I guess you want to remove the fact that defender or attacker, football players, a player that should know better and do more. And I do get that to an extent, but it's not even if it's like a forward player that typically wins that sort of ball anyway. Like if you were to take an attack, if you were to take an attacking corner, you wouldn't put Chong anywhere near that 6-yard box, would you? You'd put him outside the box for a reason, right? So you know that he's not going to win a header defensively or offensively. So to put him in a position where he could be challenged from across by someone that, I mean, Kane Jackson, he's not the most prolific of players, but fundamentally he's a forward that has a bit of build to him and does win headers and has a fair sort of aerial dual win percentage. So the fact that you've given Derby an opportunity at 0-0 to have a complete mismatch between Chong, who is brilliant in some areas and pretty awful in other areas, and I think some of the areas where he's pretty awful is in that exact situation. You've given them a chance to be able to put a bigger man on the back stick and out jump Chong to win. Basically, it was basically a free header, and then to then just basically loop over Kaminsky. I think it's an accident waiting to happen, to be honest. You saw it with Kabore last year. Okay, albeit he's a defender, and I think that probably is a bit more excusable from Edwards' perspective because he's a right wing back, and Kabore should know better because he is a defender, albeit he's not the tallest. I think you expect him to be a bit more aggressive in that area. But Chong, for me, I'm not completely going to remove blame from him because you're quite right. He's a player that should know better. But for me, that's just a tactical issue. I think if you failing the players we have, clearly we are currently short at the back. You just have to adapt. You can't go into a game where you've basically only really got 3 big defenders and that's it. I think if you had Hashi or Walters or Doughty, then it's a bit more excusable, but you don't. So you have to switch it up. And if you change to a back 4, and okay, it's still a sort of a square peg round hole, but you put Tom Holmes at right back, for example, and then you stick Anderson and McGuinness as your centre back pair, and then put Joe Johnson at left back. You've got 4 defenders there, and then you're in a situation where you've got probably the left midfielder in a 4-4-2 trying to defend the cross. Still might not block the cross, but then when the ball comes in at the back post, you've got Tom Holmes against Kane Jackson, and he flicks it away. So I think you just have to be able to create situations where you're not going to concede stupid goals. And I think putting Chong at right wing back for all the positivity does give you going forward. I don't think Chong at right wing back has been a complete disaster from a sort of a general perspective. I think going forward, he's definitely offered quite a bit in transition, and I can see it. But then you have to just sort of take into account that you're going to have those moments where he's going to be outmuscled at the back post, and you're likely going to concede because there are situations where they're sort of 0.8 plus xG chances, right? So yeah, I just think it was all round stupid, and I can't blame Chong fully for that. I think it's more of a tactical thing for me.
And how can you? I mean, you probably can't explain it, but how can we possibly explain just the lack of impetus when we're playing at home in front of a Kenilworth Road when we should be playing probably our best football, but we're seeing very little in terms of creativity, thinking, just general football inability. What explains that, Adam?
Um, I don't really know, if I'm honest. I was watching the game the other night. The one thing that screams out to me is there's no connection between our midfield and our forwards. Like there's no player. We've spoken about a ball carrying midfielder previously, someone that will actually get on the ball and run and drive, and you know they can move forward and drive. So you've got Eli Morris making runs and making space. We don't have the wing backs that are pushing up that high. In all honesty, although Chong did okay the other night, but I thought was quite predictable in terms of that cutting in. So was fairly easy to defend against, although he did get some good balls in. So fair play to him there. But I just didn't see any connection at all. Like first half, just going back to the first half really quickly, there was a few occasions where Clark got on the ball, did his little spins between a couple of players, and you thought, right, come on then, drive forward. And you look further up the pitch, you're watching further up the pitch at the same time, and there's nothing there. There's no movement with any sort of pace. There's no like patterns or that what I would expect connection between Eli and Morris and Clark, considering they've all played together for years. Like there's just nothing there that screams we're in this position in the pitch on the ball and this is our intention. And that worries me big time because yeah, I don't know how many goals we've had from open play compared to set pieces. I think Sky showed a stat in the week that we'd had 10 from set pieces, so not sure what that leaves from open play. But yeah, I think it's quite a good summary is that we are very one dimensional as you mentioned, Finn. So that's the thing that really stood out to me, and I really want to see us be a bit more inspiring, a bit more fluidity, and someone to really like drive us forward. I'd love to see that from January onwards, really.
I think for me the biggest issue now is that the players are scared. I think it's gone on so long, and we talk about this mental blocker, like why every single time they cross that white line is something just different, that they can be so good in training or so good in certain areas, but then they go on the pitch and then they just seem to collapse. It's almost PTSD where they cross that white line and they're suddenly straight back into game environment, and then they just get scared. I think there's so many moments if you break down the play, they're always picking the easy option. No one wants to sort of leave the position to sort of make a run off your man. The amount of times Clark twists in and out just to make sure he's always free of his man so he doesn't lose the ball. The players are just scared, and no one wants to take any risks anymore because they don't want to take that risk and then make a mistake and then lead to a goal. And I think when you get to that point, something has to change. And I'm not saying in terms of a change of manager, but I think the manager needs to realise that look, you now need to help these players through this period. You need to set them up in a position where, or in a situation, in a setup where you help them out. And if someone makes a mistake, you've got someone there for them. Like playing this 3-4-3, I think like I actually quite like a back three. I think in terms of a setup, I think I like the way a back three works, and I think if you have people in the right area, as a long-term system, I don't mind thinking about a back three as like our long-term go-to system. But I think right now, when we're in such a rut, in such a position when the players are scared to make mistakes, you just need to help them, and it's too. I think a back three is great when it's going great, but when it's going badly, it goes really, really wrong. So I think you just need to just get to a point where look, you realise you've not got the personnel. I think in midfield, I think you're quite right. We lack this midfielder that can just take the game by the scruff of its neck and just go out and win something. Like you saw it exactly with Swansea coming to us, and okay, they didn't win the game in the end, but Matt Grimes controlled that midfield, and like. Matt Grimes was a name that I said before pre-season. Like if you can't go out there and get Ben Sheaf, we were linked obviously with him. Whether or not we were going to go after him and spend that much money is obviously up for debate. But if you can't go out and spend the money on Ben Sheaf, then you have to get someone else. And I think Matt Grimes would have been a perfect solution for that midfield. How he comes in and just controls it all. We've sort of ever since we lost Lansbury, we've just not really had that midfielder that can just come in and just like almost get the team together. I think suddenly if a team collapses, the midfield just sort of has no idea. Whereas if you stick like a Henry Lansbury character in the midfield, he's almost given a rocket up everyone's arse and says like, what the hell are you doing? And like we do not concede the sort of goals if you've got a midfielder like that in midfield. And I think Matt Grimes is that sort of solution. So I think Edwards just needs to help the players through it. I don't disagree that this setup is the right setup, maybe long term, and certainly for the personnel we have. But I think just in the short term, just get us through to the end of January, where you can then sign your players that might suit this formation better, that don't have any sort of baggage on sort of like mental baggage that some of these players have, and just go there maybe from February onwards with a back three. But for now, you just need to help them out because players are making mistakes, and no one wants to really step up at the minute. Which again, not blaming the players entirely. I think clearly that they can do better and should be doing better, but I think they need a bit of help right now.
You talk about character, particularly in midfield, and players stepping up. One player at the club who you can never say doesn't have character did turn the game round with the first goal for us, and that is Pelly. We've barely seen him this season, but he came on and he changed the game with his effort from range, which he usually takes one or two a game, an effort from range, but luckily it got the right deflection and it lifted it. You could see the players got visibly lifted from that goal, and then got the second one, 2-3 minutes later. Just how much of a difference did he make when he came on, Jamie?
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying he made much of a difference from a tactical perspective, but it's just a player that just comes on and gives you that lift. I think as I spoke about the whole Henry Lansbury type character, and I'm not saying Pelly is anywhere near sort of as good as Lansbury was for us in terms of that character, but I think he just comes on and just says to the lads like, "Come on, like we just need to get it together." And I think he sees that when you're trying to sometimes walk the ball into the net, you just need to sometimes take a bit of a pot shot from outside the box, and it might go in your favour. And it went in our favour. Obviously, unfortunately, I think it's been given to Holmes, but you certainly don't score that without Pelly doing Pelly things. And yeah, I said to people around me as soon as I went in, that is absolutely cheap irony in terms of a player that you've not sort of brought into the fold at all. Suddenly you're desperate for a goal. You bring him on, and he as good as scores a goal to get you level and ultimately wins the game. I think clearly the winning goal is Carlton's, but you certainly don't win that game without that first goal. So yeah, big difference. And I know you're probably going to ask, do you think he should get more game time? Long term, no. I think short term, potentially yes. I think again, just to get us through this period, I'm probably still of the opinion that he probably goes in January, rightly or wrongly. But I just think there's players now ahead of him, because I think we need to sign one anyway. I think we absolutely need to sign a midfielder. Then you've got Kraus in there. I think Clark sometimes gets a bit of criticism. I think he probably unfairly criticised. I think he probably does more for us than people can actually see. So then suddenly you've got Pelly is at least fifth choice, right? With those four with Darbo, etc. So Pelly probably goes in the long term, potentially end of Jan next summer, but certainly through this Christmas spell and sort of into the sort of mid to late January, I certainly would bring him in a little bit just to try and just bring some character to that team.
I think it's gonna for me it's gonna be a real shame, and I don't disagree that he probably will move on in Jan. But when I look back at how the season's gone so far in the last couple of months, you know, there's no reason why he could and shouldn't have had more minutes. Like I know he's going to be down the pecking order, and he probably will be further down it from January with Darbo coming in. But when you think of some of the things we've seen from Walsh, um, and just the brainless stupidity from him, I'd sit back and I go, like, what are we doing? And that I feel like he's been mismanaged in that sense, because particularly over November and December, there's absolutely no reason why he shouldn't have been playing, and coming off the bench every week. So it will be a very, very sad day when he does leave, and if it is January and we don't get to sort of say a proper goodbye, it'll be disappointing. I know we have to move on to bigger and better things, but yeah, my feeling of how he's been treated over the last few weeks is it leaves a bit of a bitter taste when I think about him compared to the impact of someone like Walsh.
Yeah, and Liam Walsh and his, I mean, actions, brainless behaviour, we'll talk about it a bit later on, but has been mentioned surprisingly in the programme notes by Gary Sweet, who wasn't holding any words back. He was pretty brutal about what he had to say about Liam Walsh and his poor disciplinary record for Luton Town. And it was something we looked at as well. He's never had a red card in his career before he came to Luton, and now he's had two in the space of about 7 games. So yeah, something's wrong there, and I'm not sure we'll be seeing him anytime soon. Which makes you wonder, maybe Pelly won't be on his way out, but based on how much Edwards picks him, it's probably not someone you can see him being that keen to keep hold of. And you mentioned that it'll be a sad day when he does go, Adam. What sort of impact do you think that can have on the squad? Because everyone at Luton, and fans, players, everyone behind the scenes knows how important he is at the club and how much he means to the club. And even in things like, I don't know if you saw the Sky Sports video they did with 5 of the players, ranking themselves like 1 to 5. Pelly was right at the centre of that constantly, and his voice booms over everyone. And he's certainly got a lot to say. And maybe having someone like that in the dressing room during a tough time is what you need.
Yeah, I think he will be a massive miss. I mean, you look at it and you can go, right, well, what does that actually translate to on the pitch, where ultimately the fans see that's where it matters. And this season, whatever is going on, like camaraderie wise, like it doesn't result in anything positive on the pitch, or it hasn't. But we know he's been a massive factor for like the club and success over God knows how many years he's been in now. I can't even remember what it is, but a long time. So I think it's just going to be sad that it's that kind of that chapter closed again. The only player still around from non-league days, got the accolade of winning promotion with us through every division into the Prem, and it's just sad more than anything in my mind to close that chapter. But it is almost the right thing to do, even though I disagree with his minutes over the past few weeks, basically.
Yeah, I think I've made my thoughts on pretty known over the last couple of seasons doing these pods. I love the guy. I think he's been immense for us and deserves any sort of stand naming statue sort of stuff that comes his way. Whatever happens, obviously with Palcourt, etc. But yeah, I think his time has come despite the goal. I think he certainly can probably do some more stuff for us this season. Certainly through these next weeks and months until we get more players in. But I mean, if anything, I sort of hope it might have a positive effect on the rest of the squad in terms of look, no one's safe. Look, if we can move Pelly on, then we can move any one of you guys on. If you don't sort of get you back together, so I'm hoping there's could be a slight positive spin on Pelly going out because you've got some players in that team that are both longer servers in terms of sort of Morris etc. And you got those that were probably obviously like the players that have joined since the Prem both have various or different perspectives on Pelly in terms of how long they've been with the team. But I think no one in that in that squad doesn't know how big he's been for us, and I think I would imagine all of them would have been welcomed by Pelly at some point with open arms, and he would have been a big factor of them sort of gelling into the squad. So they would all know how big Pelly is, and hopefully, regardless of their time served at Luton in terms of the rest of the squad, it will just give them a bit of a kick to say, look, no one is safe, and if you don't meet the standards that Rob or someone else expects in the future, then it's also going to be your time. And because I think we've got a bit of a reputation both internally and externally, probably more internally in terms of potentially having too much of a romantic lens on some of these players in this squad, and that actually, I mean, you saw it with Luke Berry, who ironically probably could do a job for us this season, but I think going into the Prem probably was a bit too romantic in terms of keeping him around, and we could have strengthened in some areas. And I think we need to try and wipe that reputation from us now and say, look, no, we actually mean business. Like we're actually a professional elite football club that will sort of strong arm our way in deals and new signings, and also force players out of the club where we don't think that they meet our standards. So yeah, I'm hoping that there could be some good things that come out of what will be a sad day when Pelly leaves.
We are talking about a win, despite what we've been saying just then. You wouldn't know we won the game, but we did win the game very late on, and that's 2 back-to-back home games that we've won 90 minutes or later. And just how much does that do in terms of morale for a team in your home games, Adam?
Yeah, I think it's good for morale within the squad to get a win because ultimately, like if you're going week after week after week and getting a draw or defeats, then it's only going to go down, isn't it? It's only going to be negative. So good to get a win. I think, yeah. I mean, look, it gets us further away from the shit, doesn't it? Like, you know, I've said a couple of times the last couple of weeks, we are all about Operation Mid-Table Mediocrity this season. That's literally what it is. Anyone watching this that still thinks, oh yeah, but you're 6 or 9 points outside the playoffs, forget it. You're smoking something strong. Just forget about that. So let's focus on not being in a relegation battle for number one and being nowhere near that pull or needing to do things in the last 5 or 6 games. So yeah, any win we can get, however it comes, however late the goals come, I don't mind. Like I'm happy to paper over the cracks for now because we've got the January window coming where I personally will be judging the club very much again on what they can do in the window, and I'm sure we'll have a pod focused on that, which will hopefully be positive. So yeah, that's where my judgment's going to come. But between now and then, win them however you can, paper over the cracks if you need to, and just get closer to being safe, really.
It's a win that takes up to 15. If you mentioned there, someone might say, "Oh, it's 6 points off the playoffs." It's actually 10 points off the playoffs now, and that still relies on all those teams in the playoffs and the teams between us and the playoffs dropping points for us to make that jump. So it is quite a big jump, and it is a mid-table aiming season by the looks of it, Jamie, unless there is a big shift in results.
Yeah, it's gonna take sort of League One season levels of form where you go 20 odd games unbeaten to get anything out of this season to the positive, I think. So yeah, it's a mid-table season. Clearly, if we can, as Adam says, get to March and be 15 points clear of the sort of the bottom three and be sort of nowhere near any conversations of what are sort of a bottom five, bottom six teams looking to sort of escape the drop are, then that would be, I think, sort of our first checkpoint. Then if we can make a late run and have something exciting that might be sort of, who knows, if we're 6 points away from the playoffs with 5 to go or whatever, then it might add a bit of excitement. But I think completely focused now on the future. Clearly January is a big part of that. And yeah, if we can get through this season and finish in a decent sort of 10th, 11th, 12th, then clearly we can go into next season, hopefully having learned what we've learned from last summer and maybe look a bit higher and try and push boundaries a bit more. And I mean, again, I think a topic for another time, a different conversation. But I think in terms of looking for the future, if we can start to bleed in Joe Johnson and Zach Nelson in particular, I think that should also be almost like a sub target for this season, because I mean, when Nelson, when he came on Friday, I thought he looked like one of the better players on the pitch. And again, albeit it was playing at right wing back, but I think if we can put him in a more attacking area, I think he can certainly pull some strings for us and be a really promising player. So I'd love to see more of Nelson. I think start of the season, I think more because of a bad summer than because he was an outstanding academy player. But I think he's certainly one of the better, and it's been unfortunate that he was taken out of the team the last few months. Obviously, he's got his chance again given injuries, but I think he deserves more of a chance. Maybe not from the start, but if we're sort of in the game with half hour to go on Boxing Day and we want to try and go for a win, then I would absolutely put on Nelson. So yeah, as a sub target for this season, I'd love to try and bleed some more sort of academy players in.
Yeah, you mentioned there about Boxing Day. We'll be talking about the Boxing Day game after a break. But before that, don't forget to check us out on socials. That's at Oak Road Hatter on Twitter or X, on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can keep up to date with all of our content, podcasts, and merch on those social media outputs. But we're going to go to a quick break now, and we'll be talking about the Boxing Day fixture when we get back. Welcome back to Oak Road Hatter, where I'm still joined by Jamie Castle and Adam Driscoll, and we're going to be looking ahead to Boxing Day. And some of you might be thinking, oh, I don't want to think about after Christmas already, but I'm afraid we're going to have to get straight into it. It's an away game on Boxing Day, which I'm sure some of you will be very pleased about, others will not be so pleased about. And it's a trip to Bristol to face Bristol City. And it's the Bristol City side that have been described for quite a few years now as permanently mid-table. And they are exactly mid-table in 12th position. Jamie, talk to me about Bristol. What is it that they can offer against Luton?
I mean, first of all, can we call him Bristol City, please? Because I don't want to be one of those pods that just call someone Sheffield, for example. So yeah, Bristol City, or just the Robins. I think I think just call them by their nickname. But yeah, they're just a bang average team, to be honest, and I think that is saying something coming from a Luton side that obviously has been fairly shit this season as well. So not expecting loads of quality on Boxing Day, albeit they've got some very good technical attacking players. I mean, obviously Scott Twine we've been linked with for about 10 years now, so obviously will be interesting to see. I know he's a set piece merchant as well in terms of his long shots from 30-yard free kicks, so cue him scoring one of those against us on I was about to say the weekend, but it's not, is it? It's what is it, a Thursday, I think. So yeah, they've got a good squad of players, and then no one that is, I guess, extraordinary, but then no one that's bad either. So I think mid-table is probably a fair shout. I think at home they've been okay. I think only 3 home wins from 10, so can certainly go into this game. I mean, if there's a game that we want in terms of a place to go to try and break this spell of, what is it now, eight away defeats, I think, then probably Bristol City is one of them, because they've not won 7 of their 10 home games. So of course we would love to go to Ashton Gate or whatever it's called now and get a win, but clearly we just to get something away from home would be good, because if we can start winning at home and drawing away, then that could make the second half of the season fairly tasty. And we sort of completely threw out the prospect of playoffs or higher, but suddenly if you're getting sort of 2 points a game, then that certainly puts you in contention. So yeah, I think a point away would be good. Clearly we want all 3, and I think Bristol City is probably one of the places that you would probably hand pick to try and go and get something from.
Yeah, and you mentioned there are terrible away form. It's 8 defeats on the bounce away from home, and the most recent being Blackburn away, which we didn't discuss closer to the time, but we're going to have to briefly touch on it now. That was just all round another shocking performance there. There's really nothing to say that's good about it, and I'm sure Adam will really love what we're about to discuss, because it's the Premier League loanees who both scored against us when all season he's been saying, why didn't we use the Premier League loan market?
Yeah, I know. I think we all have, to be fair, though, haven't we? Every time we talked about recruitment and summarised the window, and even during it, we were sort of saying, come on, use these relationships that we built or supposedly built last season and get some big clubs to trust us with their young guns. We didn't. And when I was actually, fun enough, I was at Ampthill watching a non-league game. Don't ask me why, but ended up at Ampthill. And I saw the name of Cozier Dewberry come up. I think that's right. And I just thought straight away back to our conversation where we spoke about him as well on one of our pods, saying great little winger, like let's get him in, pacey and all that. But never happened. And I think that's probably enough on Blackburn, because it was pretty pathetic, wasn't it? Really.
And yeah, as you said, it's not only 2 Premier League loan players, but it's 2 Premier League loan players in areas of the pitch where we probably could have done with them. I mean, not only do you have Cozier Dewberry, who is a exciting, dynamic, albeit young and inexperienced forward player. I mean, clearly he came from Arsenal and was snapped up by Brighton. Obviously, Brighton see something in him, and if they see something in him, then we probably got something about him, given their track record. And yeah, I think he would absolutely get into this team right now in terms of a sort of a more sort of a wider forward, but can also play centrally as well. And then all of a sudden you got Owen Beck, who would be prime Alfie Doughty cover as well. So again, a different conversation whether he would have come to us, given that he would have known he'd be largely second fiddle to Alfie Doughty. But then having said that, given the fact that Doughty could play on the right as well, and he would have certainly got enough games if he'd come in as well. So yeah, I think it just sums it up when you've got 2 players that you'd probably snap both Liverpool's and Brighton's hand off for, had we been offered the chance in the summer.
And I think that's enough of Blackburn, because no one wants to reflect on that anymore. But we're going to go back to Bristol, and I just wanted to talk about the attacking threats that they do have, despite the fact that they're not the most productive at home. And one in particular is Mehmeti on the right or the left. He can play either side. He is probably their key threat, Jamie. I don't know whether you agree or not.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I always shudder when I see his name because of the Wickham days and the issues he sort of served us when he was at Wickham. But no, yeah, really, really good player. I mean, I was surprised when I looked at him how young he was. I thought he was probably more 25, 26, but he's still only 23. So he was really young. He was sort of 18, 19 when he caused us issues at Wickham. So yeah, really good player. I think a player that sort of maybe in that Jared Bowen type mould that could break into the top flight at some point. I certainly wouldn't rule out him going somewhere. I mean, I know Bournemouth signed Semenyo from Bristol City, and look how he's doing, right? So certainly got track record for that sort of forward. I mean, I don't think he's as pacey or as physical as Semenyo, but he's a bit more of like a technical player. But certainly think he can punch his way into the top flight. So yeah, I think with Twine on the left and Mehmeti on the right, certainly going to be causing us problems against our sort of two attacking wing backs.
Yeah, it will certainly be attacking wing backs for us. Whether we just don't know who they'll be at this stage. I don't think anyone can predict the Luton team at this point, just because of no one knows what the availability is like. But when you look at Bristol, it's probably quite a good time to be playing them, because they have just lost to West Brom today at time of recording. The same West Brom who went 10 unbeaten for a little while, but drew 9 or something. So West Brom have turned things around against Bristol, and they also haven't won in the 3 matches before that, including a 3-0 defeat to Portsmouth. So I think inconsistent is one way to describe them. Very much mid-table, and it's probably a team that, if we had everyone available, you'd be looking at going, "Oh, we should win this." But Adam, it's probably a game we should be targeting a draw from.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, we've touched on you look at like the home table, if you like. They are 17th. Swansea, who follow us, follow after that at the 21st. So, we're not going to places where they're formidable at home by any means. At some point, we have to turn around our away form, because we're not going to be winning every home game between now and the end of the season. So, when that dries up, if you still haven't improved your away form, then you're back in trouble. So we do really need to turn it around. And I think these are as good a 2 games as any, albeit they are back to back and quick and involve travel. But I think they're as good a 2 games as any to go, right, come on, what can we do? Can we even get like 2 points? Can we draw both of them or something? Like that would be a positive for me if we can go, couple of draws, couple of games without defeat on top of Friday night. I'd I'd take that. I think if I was offered it now. So yeah, it's a big opportunity for us. But I do fear for us when I look at just how frail we are defensively, and how quickly we're going to get back some of these players. I don't know how quickly the likes of Burke, Bell, Walters, Doughty are coming back. And it does frighten me a little bit when I see like Mehmeti and Twine, who are pretty quick and pretty skillful. I'm not sure it's going to take too much to kind of get around us. So I'll keep everything crossed, and yeah, certainly hope that we can get something at Bristol City.
And another quick player, albeit someone that we know a lot more about, that could feature for Bristol, although he hasn't played much this season, is Harry Cornick. He's obviously he was at Luton for quite a while and then left when we got just before we got to the Premier League. And he's now been at Bristol 2-3 years, but he's never really torn up any trees there. But it would just be it would be very Luton at the moment for him to come in and do something, wouldn't it, Jamie?
I mean, I was thinking the opposite. Maybe the Christmas song will finally bear fruit, and this year, to save me from tears, I'll give it to Harry Cornick, because he nodded one in his own net to give us 3 points. So yeah, maybe that song was made for a reason, because we envisaged him helping us to a badly needed away point or 3. But no, yeah, again, a player that I have a big soft spot for. Clearly didn't put up too many trees with us either. He was good, probably nothing more than good. But he certainly helped us through a few years where we needed a player exactly like him, a player that could get us up the pitch. I mean, scored a wonder goal at Leeds, obviously in that COVID season. And I remember in the COVID season, and this is the full season rather than sort of the back end of the one before where we stayed up, but the COVID season where we were mid-table, we went to Bristol City and beat him 3-2, and him and Eli's partnership was incredible. I remember it was him, Eli, and Colo, and together they were very, very good. So yeah, I'm hoping we can sort of replicate that.
And I'm going to go for some score predictions now, because we've got a bit more to talk about afterwards. So, Adam, I'm going to come to you first, and I see that reaction already.
Thank you so much for that. Well, look, I don't want to be too pessimistic, but yeah, I I just don't know where I can see us turning around this away form. So I'm gonna reluctantly go for a 2-1 defeat.
Reluctantly going for a 2-1 defeat. Okay, and Jamie, your turn.
I'm gonna go for a bit of a Christmas miracle. Um, the only way we're going to get something is because it's both teams to score. So it's not going to be the Luton of old 1-0 away win. It's going to be the Luton of even older 3-2 away win. Um, yeah, I think we're going to hopefully play some different players that might impress or might impact. I mentioned Nelson earlier. I would love to see him get a start because I mean, again, I think Brown's been good, but nothing more than good. And I would love to maybe see Nelson come in his position as well. So if we can just maybe make one or two changes, if we can get one or two back, I think at last press conference, Hashi wasn't too far away, neither was Walters. So who knows if we can have a surprise return, then that would also give us a boost going into that game. So yeah, I'm going to go Luton to get the win, 3-2, and we can end Boxing Day very, very happy.
I've decided to meet you both in the middle, and I've gone for a draw. And I don't think it's going to be a Boxing Day cracker. I think it will probably be 1-1, and not a game for the people looking for entertainment on their Boxing Day. So yeah, I've gone for 1-1. Let's talk a bit about the recent Luton news that's come out in the last week or so, and that's the Power Court news, because planning permission has been approved for Power Court, although I thought it had already been approved at one stage. So it's a planning process, and anyone who knows about that industry knows it's a very, very lengthy process. But it looks like planning permission has properly been approved this time round, and potential for the stadium to open around the 2027 season, give or take, depends on obviously the work that needs to go into it. It's a pretty tough time for the club to be talking about a new 25,000 seat stadium when we can barely fill up Kenilworth Road for home games because of the lack of excitement we're seeing, Jamie.
Yeah, and I mean, first of all, let's take it for what it is. I think it's nothing short of excellent news. It's something that not only have our generation been wanting, but even my granddad's generation has been wanting for years. He talks of stories of sort of attempts back in 1950 or in the 50s to get us out of Kenilworth Road and get us elsewhere, and here we are 70 years later and trying to still do it. So for the club, it's brilliant. I think obviously we all love the Kenny, and it would be a sad day. I think no shame in saying that I will be teary on that day, but for the club going forwards, we absolutely need a new stadium. So I think that first of all is excellent. Secondly, for the town, God, it needs it. I mean, just walking through the area now, clearly it's a site that's been derelict for decades, but just that whole area in terms of new hotels and new gig venue and sort of flats, and no doubt the knock-on effect on the wider economy of sort of new pubs and restaurants and shops that will come there. So for the town, secondly, it's super vital, and hopefully, hopefully in Taylor Swift's Eras Tour Part 2, she might come to Power Court. So who knows? So yeah, I think that they're both excellent, I guess, pieces for Luton. So big credit to the board. Clearly, they made that as one of their key objectives when they came in. But I guess to add now a challenge to the board is, I think, my view, I think, agree or disagree, I think that my view is that they probably took their eye off the ball on the pitch in terms of the recruitment and stuff, just because they're focusing on Power Court, rightly or wrongly. I think in the long term, probably rightly. Clearly, Power Court is super important, and I think they probably prioritised that over the football side of things over the last sort of 18 months. I think certainly from getting to the Prem onwards, I think they probably thought, well, we're here now, we're in the Prem, and we've got the money, and no matter what happens this season, it's been excellent, and we've got the money to do this stadium. Whereas now, you've got a 25,000 seat stadium. If you think we're good enough for 25,000 seats, then I think on the pitch certainly now needs to catch up. I think it was for years where maybe on the pitch we were ahead of the game with everything else, the academy, commercially, football stadium. On the pitch we were always ahead of the rest of the club, whereas now on the pitch is behind certainly the stadium side of things. So now on the pitch now needs to catch up, and again, not just January. I think obviously January is important, but I know the limitations on what you can do in January, and we can only expect so much. But certainly going into next summer, assuming we're in the Championship next season, we now need to start to act as if we're a club that wants to get back into the Premier League, because that is the only level at which we will fill 25,000 seats. I think Luton Town at its steady state is probably a 15,000 home fan club. If you're talking sort of mid-table Championship, that's probably where we'd get to. Add 3,000 away fans, that's 18,000, and then suddenly you've got 7,000 empty seats. So a challenge to the board now to not be a club like a Coventry or an MK that has a lovely stadium but can't fill it for 90% of the season. So clearly really positive, but now it'd be a challenge to the board to try and meet that expectation.
I think for me it was it's hard sometimes to separate that sort of news with the way the season's going, but when you look at it in isolation, it is, there's undoubtedly it's the biggest news we've ever had, and the furthest we've ever got in terms of milestones for a new ground. Like we've never had final plans approved by the council. Like, I don't know if we've ever owned land before. I think we probably have bought land somewhere and it's fallen by the wayside. But you're in a position now where not long ago we had the owners of the mall opposing everything that we did. So now we are in a position where we have the majority of the money, we own the land, we have no opposition from businesses or locals or anything like that, and and we're ready to go. So and obviously the council have given us the green light for the final stadium plan. So it's massive. It's absolutely huge. And I think what we all want to see now is, okay, well, let's crack on then. I think we still have to appreciate that it's going to be the middle of next year by the time we actually get movement in terms of like shovels in the ground on the foundations of the stadium, because they still have to do things with the River Lee and with the substation. But as far as I'm aware, both of those things are in progress already. So I'd love to see it where we get, as fans, we get the ability to see what's going on from the summer onwards, like regularly. I remember Brighton did a webcam in the Amex where fans could see the build, live. So that would be amazing to be able to see something like that. And then fingers crossed we can, we can put it up, and we can get in for that 27-28 season. I mean, it means we're limited on time at Kenilworth Road, but I did notice also that Gary Sweet sort of said, we'd like to be in ideally by the start of the 27-28. It could in theory be the season after. So it sounds like they're not willing to go in mid-season, which I would probably tend to agree with. Really, I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think you can't go in mid-season. I think it just changes too much for everyone at the club, not just the players, but everyone working at the club as well. I think it puts pretty much everything up in there, and I don't think anyone needs that. I did just want to touch on one final thing that Jamie mentioned, because he was speaking about what that does for the town, and I don't think it needs questioning that it will be a huge thing for Luton, because as a town it's suffered a lot. I mean, you walk through Luton and sometimes it can be, or a lot of the time, and I don't think anyone from Luton will be in disagreement. It can be a really bleak place to walk around, but having a new stadium with new venues, new buildings all around that does huge things for the area. And the amount of jobs that brings in is absolutely massive. And I know it's a much bigger scale, but I think you just look at Tottenham, because the amount of people they employ from that local area in that stadium is absolutely huge. And I think it's something that Luton really needs. So it can only be positive for the town, really. If we'd love to know your thoughts, if you've been talking about the plans for Power Court being approved. So if you've got anything to say about that, what it offers to the town and what we really need to do on the pitch to improve that, or you want to talk about anything we've discussed on today's podcast, please let us know by getting in touch on socials or commenting on YouTube. But before we go, I just want to remind you, don't forget to check out our merch on oakroadhatter.com, because we've got plenty of options that some really, really great designs, or everything on there is brilliant, but there's some really great designs that a lot of time has gone into by different members of the team at Oak Road Hatter. So have a look, and if there's something that takes your fancy, we'd really love and appreciate anything you buy. Before we go, I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and hopefully we'll be coming back after Christmas to talk about a Luton Town away win. But from myself, from Jamie, and from Adam, Merry Christmas, and thank you for listening.